get my shoes and out the door. 5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling great. 9, gonna shine, life is good. I'm doing fine. 10, gonna do it right and do it big, yeah, yeah. I look into the sky with all the beautiful color, but there's more than just for me, so gonna share it with another. I got to show, to give, let out. I want to sing and shout. Take a look and see a beautiful morning that turns into a beautiful evening, and together make a beautiful life. And if you want to,
I've been in here and people are roaring with laughter, so.
It's a dirty show, though.
Well, it's clean dirt.
Forgive me, but the best restaurants of the world are here in Vegas. I mean, you have here the best of the best.
Yes.
So we have many celebrities here. The Harley Madison come over here, and the Usher come over here many often, and the Paris Hilton come here, and Britney Spears came over here like 2 weeks ago.
Boy, I'm dating myself, but it's okay. Nobody else will. Oh.
That's so Vegas. Welcome to That's So Vegas. I'm your host, Christine McKellar, and I'm here at the WCOBM studio right off the south end of the fabulous Las Vegas Boulevard. I have a very special guest today. I'm a little nervous being in the studio with him.
You should be.
Gerry McCambridge, the mentalist. You are the mentalist. There are other mentalists out there, but
yes.
boy,
I
have
have
you
the title of the mentalist.
You are the mentalist, and you have carved a niche. You've received quite a few prestigious awards, the Merlin among them.
That's for those of you at home that don't know, that's the Oscars in the magic industry.
Yes, and you got it for being a mentalist. Which
I
is
actually received 2 of them. I received Mentalist of the Year, and then they gave me Mentalist of the Decade. So that's why I get the Mentalist.
That is just amazing. And again, a little nerve-wracking for me because I just know you're reading my mind.
That's my job. You're interviewing me. That's your job. I'm reading your mind. Let me.
Oh, please. I have nothing to hide. Ha ha.
Yeah. Lie number 1. We'll keep track of them, folks.
Okay. You've also written a book. That's always exciting. I love authors, especially Las Vegas authors.
Other than my 6 kids, this is one of the things I am most proud of. It's called Making the Mentalist. It's actually a book that I wrote, came out about 1.5 years ago, and it has taken on a life of its own.
Interesting. I'm going to hold it up for the viewers while you talk.
I wasn't sure what direction it was going in. I wanted to write it for about 10 years because after my show, I perform 6 nights a week at Planet Hollywood for the last 11 years here in Las Vegas. Cheap plug. But every night after my show, people love to come up and go, how did you learn to do this? How did you learn to read minds?
Right.
Is anybody else in your family psychic? They come up with all these crazy questions. Mm-hmm. And the actual backstory to how I started this and why I do it is not a happy story. It's not a story where people go, oh my God, that's so good.
Yeah,
people read the book and they go, oh my God. And the basis of the book, it starts out as, why does a 14-year-old kid feel the only way he can survive in this world is to learn to manipulate people's minds?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and there's a...
And you were in New York City at the time, correct? Is that where
I
you
lived in New York
then?
my entire life until I came out here for the show.
Your dad was a detective. That's kind of fascinating.
Yes,
New York City on top of it.
Yes.
And you probably picked up, kind of funny, I had to think about that. As a child, you probably couldn't get away with much because your dad was so good at interpreting body language, and if you were lying or hiding something that he'd be aware of that, right?
But my father left when I was around 11 or something like that. So I didn't get a lot of that happening to me, but it used to happen to my older brother and sister.
Oh.
So I'd be the little baby, I'd be the little one just observing, and I'd hear like my father say to my mother, where was she last night? And my mother would go, I don't know, she told me she had a flat, referring to my older sister.
Of course.
And then he would say, okay, I'm going to figure out where it is. And my mother would say, I tried, I couldn't crack her, I couldn't figure it out. And I'd watch him do his thing on her.
Amazing.
And 5 minutes later, she was spilling her guts, and I was like, oh, I got to learn this. This is so sweet. So
there
between
are techniques.
knowing magic
Right.
and his techniques, I put the magic and the detective together, and made The Mentalist.
So, was magic your first love even before, say, when you were little? I noticed with a lot of entertainers, they seem to get a spark at like 4 or 7 seem to be the magic numbers of
Yes.
age. So,
Magic was my first love. I received a magic set. Actually, this whole thing began with this little thing right here.
Oh, a little
this
blue
is
box.
the very first trick I ever got when I was a kid.
Uh-huh.
It was a fun little trick, and I loved magic. I loved it, and around the time I started to do magic, it was my form of getting attention. And soon after, my parents started to go through a divorce. Now, this is over 40 years ago. Now, nowadays, everybody gets divorced.
right. I know back then it was like,
It was,
worst thing ever.
you wore the scarlet letter if your parents were
Right.
divorced. Well, I had the second scarlet letter because the first one was, he's adopted. So I'd go to school and people would go, oh, that's Gerard. He's adopted. And
Interesting.
so now I'm the adopted divorcee kid. So this magic became my way of breaking out of that. And
you were
becoming-
also born on Halloween, weren't you?
Yes, yes. I was born on Halloween. I was left in the hospital for about a month. They don't know why. Kind of abandoned. Then they put me in an orphanage, and
Okay.
then a family came along and adopted me.
And you were probably still an infant at that time.
Under 1 year old.
Interesting. Some parents choose to tell the child right off or let them grow up with it, and others wait until the child's 21. But obviously, you were told from the get-go that.
I was told probably from when I was old enough to understand.
Okay, so that I understand that would probably be better because I've heard horror stories of kids who felt they'd been lied to their whole life,
Right.
like Santa Claus or
Right.
something like that. So you found it was the magic was kind of a defense against the mocking or the bullying. You probably were bullied before that was a word really used commonly.
Let's change the word defense to my way of shining. You know, some kids are musicians, and some kids are brains in school. You know, they're really smart, and I'm not a very smart person. I couldn't. I'm not saying that to make a joke. Like, I can't read. So for me to read like 2 full paragraphs is almost impossible for
Is
me
that
to do.
like a?
It's an attention deficit problem.
Oh,
So
okay.
I've always been classified as lazy and underachieving in school.
But you're more tensile and visual, I would imagine.
More creative.
Creative,
Yeah.
So not being able to read, who proofed your book for you?
I hired an editor. I
great.
couldn't write the book. Sit and write it.
Right,
So
ghostwriter
I
you had.
actually no, I didn't have a ghostwriter. I
Dictated.
wrote it myself. I just dictated it into the computer and let
Great.
the computer type it out, and then I sent it off to an editor. And most of it was correct. Like, the changes that she suggested were very, very small. So 99.9% of the book I wrote, 0.1% the editor changed.
That's amazing with modern technology. There probably how many, very talented people like you back in the day who didn't have that, like you said, talking into the computer. I mean, there is dictation and stuff like that. Kind of reminds you of Helen Keller in a way.
Yes.
People.
I wanted to write the book 10 years ago. Simon & Schuster actually gave me a huge advance to write it, and they gave me a ghostwriter because of that reason.
Right.
And because of legal issues and some of the things that I talk about in the book was stalled and stalled and stalled and stalled. And I'm a very big fan of the rock group Kiss. And a friend of mine asked me if I had read the Paul Stanley book. Paul Stanley is the lead singer.
Right.
And I said to my friend, who's known me my whole life, I said, I kind of don't read. And he was like, well, you can get it on audiobook. So I got it on audiobook, and I listened to it, and I thought, it sounds like Paul is just talking to me.
I love audiobooks, yeah.
And I said, I can do that in reverse. I could just talk my story to people and have it being transcribed, and I can write a book in reverse of what I'm liking. So Kiss, actually, Paul Stanley
Thank you, Paul.
got me going on this, pushed me in the right direction of doing this.
And that's incredible because being a mentalist, again, you overcame all this. And I wanted, we're going to have to go to break here in a second, but I would like you to define for viewers in our next segment, which will be coming up shortly, don't go away, what is a mentalist? When you think about hypnotists and psychics, and some mentalists don't even like the word psychic attached to them in any way, shape, or form. And there have been so many great mentalists that people would know just from The Amazing Karnak. Was that Karnak, is that correct?
Karnak was Johnny Carson impersonating Kreskin.
Kreskin, that's who I met, the amazing
Yes.
Kreskin. See, I've been brainwashed by Johnny Carson and several others, but I need to give a shout out to my sponsor real quick. It's
Go
the
ahead.
Red
We got to
Roof
pay the
Inn.
bills around here.
Yeah, we do. It's the Red Roof Inn. It's on Paradise Road across from the Hard Lock. Try the Hard Rock. Close to the airport. Pet friendly, no parking or resort fees. Stay tuned. We're going to be right back.